Hi guys. Today me and Amber will be going over Module 13, which is about designing interventions. So this chapter talks about interventions and evaluation research in the field of addiction. It emphasizes the importance of understanding addiction and recovery as a dynamic process of intentional behavior change. A good quote from the book would be research and evaluation studies will not advance knowledge or improve interventions unless they are designed to be sensitive to the process of human behavior change for becoming addicted and recovering from an addiction. So, some problems that are dealt with when looking at research is that most of the time there is a failure to distinguish change dimensions. This means that we are not able to know what stage the sample group is in. So, this can lead to misleading results. An example of this could be that a prevention study is focusing on individuals who are mostly in the pre-contemplation stage, which would have different results to individuals who are in the action stage. So it's important to remember that different stages come with different outcomes. A second problem that we see come up is that there is an inappropriate endpoint with the research, so studies often examine unrealistic or inappropriate endpoints, which limits the ability to find meaningful predictors or differences for treatment and control groups. So, an example of this would be that expecting 6 months sustained abstinence as the only outcome for a group for individuals who are in the early stages of change may be unrealistic, and this is also a harmful way to promote intervention programs. Another issue that is dealt with is the lack of process research. There is a deficiency in process research that focuses on how change occurs rather than just whether a result was found or not. This includes a lack of important critical markers and processes of change that it could explain how treatment did or did not operate as expected. So now that we talked a little bit about some improvements that can be made in research, this slide focuses on research that takes into account the process of change perspectives. In outcome research, we want to be creating realistic behavioral goals within the context of process of change. With these goals, it also stresses the importance of specifying the action from the behavior and distinguishing it from maintenance. An example of this would be if someone is cutting down on cigarettes so that they only smoke on the weekends, and if they are successful with this pattern, it is considered action, and then sustaining this pattern for more than 6 months becomes maintenance. And with program evaluation, we want to know if the program is able to serve individuals in different stages of change. This means that the program evaluated should be asked to provide an accurate description based on the dimensions of change of the population that's served and the type of outcomes desired. Evaluations should specifically be designed to assess relevant dimensions rather than using a one-size-fits-all protocol. This also takes into consideration examining short and long-term goals. There is also another strong push for integrating process research into every study to be able to understand mechanisms of action. This means we must examine the process of intentional behavior change instead of focusing exclusively on mechanisms of treatment or therapy variables, which goes back to wanting to know how change is happening. With policy research, we want to know if current policies, if they're being beneficial or detrimental, if there's any effects with that. Along with this, we would also want to be considering legal and moral implications that policies have. And we have seen this with the ongoing debate about the legalization of medical marijuana. And then this chapter also covers some special topics. like cultural competence, which we want to be adapting the dimensions of change to account for ethnic and cultural differences. The TTM is compatible with different cultural perspectives, but cultural adaptations are necessary. This also includes avoiding problematic techniques that do not fit with the client's culture. And then with medications and pharmacological interventions, we want to better understand how medications can interact with the process of change. We would also want to research to examine how they affect motivation and behavioral processes. And with harm reduction, we are focusing on intervention strategies that minimize risk or harm associated with the addictive behavior by also offering healthier options. With this area, we are looking at the impact that these strategies have. So now I will turn it over to Amber to go over our case study.
Perfect. Our case study is about Ariana Ramirez. She's a 32-year-old Latina female. She has been using meth daily for the past 2 years. Her substance use began casually while working at a demanding job, and her coworkers introduced her to meth as a way to stay awake. After a difficult breakup, her use escalated from occasional to daily, and she now feels that she needs meth to function. She experiences severe anxiety, weight loss, insomnia, emotional exhaustion. Ariana has attempted to quit several times, with her longest abstinence being about 4 days before her cravings and withdrawal symptoms kicked in and were overwhelming. Right now, she is living with a roommate who also uses methamphetamines. And it does create constant triggers and a risk for relapse. Despite these challenges, Ariana sought treatment voluntarily for the first time, and it shows she's entering the preparation stage of change, demonstrating a desire to move toward recovery. So the biopsychosocial helps us understand how biological, psychological, and social factors contribute to Ariana's addiction. Biologically, she faces multiple health consequences from long-term stimulant use, including significant weight loss, dental decay, heart palpitations, chronic fatigue, trouble sleeping, insomnia. These physical issues make daily functioning difficult and reinforce her reliance on meth. Psychologically, she struggles with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, and unresolved trauma from childhood emotional neglect. These experiences have impacted her, her self-esteem and coping abilities, making her more vulnerable and extremely unstable. Socially, her environment is extremely unstable as well. She's living with the roommate who actively uses meth, has limited her sober support, and she's experiencing some financial stress due to inconsistent work. When the biological, psychological, and social challenges overlap in this way, they create a cycle that maintains and reinforces addiction. So Ariana meets the criteria for severe stimulant use disorder under the DSM-5 TR due to her daily use, cravings, repeated failed attempts to quit, and withdrawal symptoms. Her DAST score was a 17 out of 28, which is severe drug-related problems and indicate the need for intensive treatment. Her SASI-4 results show a high probability of substance use disorder with elevated scores on scales that reflect symptoms, consequences, and admitted drug use patterns. Her low to moderate defensiveness suggests honesty and openness in acknowledging her struggles. Ariana is currently in the preparation stage of the trans-theoretical model. She recognizes the seriousness of her addiction and feels scared about her future. She's very close to entering the action stage where meaningful change can actually happen. Okay, so for Ariana's treatment plan, we want to focus on increasing stability and improving safety and building long-term recovery skills. Because her living environment is unsafe and her relapse risk is high, she's recommended for residential treatment followed by intensive outpatient care. Um, so after that, we want to help her get some housing that she can live in and feel comfortable. So we've got some community referrals, House of Hope Women's Program in Salt Lake City, Sober Living Properties, which is in Salt Lake City as well. USARA for peer recovery coaching, Smart Recovery or NA groups can all support her with that. Um, so her expected outcome would be safe housing, improved coping skills, and a stronger recovery network. Okay, and that has brought us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.